Hello, learners. Hope you are keeping well. Today's lesson is on settlement geography again, and we're looking at urban settlement issues with specific emphasis on your environmental, social, and economic injustices. Okay? Now, again, you must note, and I'm going to go to the next slide, that we have the three sections under environmental issues, under urban settlement issues, and we looked at urbanization, informal, and in this lesson, we're going to focus on the justices and injustices in terms of the three. Okay, the first one we'll be looking at, and let me get my little highlighter. We'll be looking at is environmental justices, which relates to air pollution, noise pollution, destruction of ecosystems. Then we look at economic, and we look at poverty, poor transport systems, and then we look at social justices. We look at unequal access to services, and then unequal access to resources. That's what we're going to focus on in this lesson. So let me have a glass of water quickly and let's get going. Okay, let's look at environmental injustice as the first ones. Okay, and this relates to damage to the natural environment by man. I know you get various different ways of interpreting it. Sometimes you may get definitions that are a bit more specific, where he talks about harmful substances like fossil fuels being released, causing damage to the environment. Remember, this is a concept, can be phrased in various ways. So it's basically damage to the natural environment by man. That's what environmental is. And one of the ones is air pollution. What is the definition of air pollution? It's the presence or introduction into air of a substance that has harmful or poisonous effects. All right. Sometimes we just assume that we know a definition. What happens? The definition of air pollution comes out. So you should know the definition. All right. Okay. So what does it cause by? Some of the examples: carbon emissions, any greenhouse gases from vehicles, industries, people, all right, that creates sometimes we do cattle farming and we increase the numbers of cattle in an area, more methane. So there's various things that will create our air pollution. You can see here, whoa, these chimneys are giving off a lot of pollution into the air. All right, that's your air pollution. That's most probably carbon, etc., that's been given off. Then we have noise pollution. And what's the definition of this? Regular exposure to elevated sound levels may lead to adverse effects in humans and other living organisms, whether it's animals, etc. So regular exposure, once in a while, yes, it is noise pollution, you understand. But if you get on all the time, and there's various factors, vehicles, people, activities, can you see here? Helicopters, graders, even the ambulance that goes through, those sound boxes, guitars, chainsaws, loud hailers, cars, okay, that are not even roadworthy and making a noise. So there's so much. You can see how the earth is suffering here. Whoa. Okay. Then we have destruction of ecosystems as another environmental issue, when natural habitats are destroyed, okay, or natural resources depleted, natural habitats, your ecosystems, etc., are being destroyed, taken away, okay, or natural resources are taken away, and other animals rely on this, or whatever is depleted, or just the environment is degraded, removed. Can you see what's happening here? Houses being built, what's happening to the natural environment? It's being reduced. So what's happening to the ecosystems there? All right, the food webs, the food chains, whatever, the ecosystems are being destroyed. Can you see it? Yeah, look at this. Whole thing has been removed. Can you see it? Destruction to the environment, environmental degradation if littering is happening, etc. It damages the ecosystems that rely there, that work together in that one area. Okay, so let's go on. Causes again of this. All right, you move my face around, and one of them is pollution, is one of the main causes of ecosystem destruction. When you pollute, whether it's air, water, land, noise, you damaging the natural ecosystems. Okay, you messing them up. Things or creatures that depend on it are dying. Vegetation is dying. Climate change, again, man. Am I right? Change in climatic conditions over a period of time. Okay, like even parts of global warming, etc., is destroying ecosystems, whether it's the oceanic or aquatic, sorry, air or land. Ecosystems are being destroyed. Land clearing, when you clear land, you clear vegetation, you clear out or destroy ecosystems. The vegetation, number one, and number two is all the other natural uh, sort of animals, whatever, that rely on that. Okay, so as we said, human populations increase and they need more land, and more land removes removal of natural vegetation. Resource exploitation, when you overuse resources in an area, whether it's soil, whether it's natural minerals, whatever, you actually exhausting the area, making it infertile, or various other things. Therefore the natural habitat cannot survive in this area. Okay, I'm sorry, let me go back here. Now let's look at economic injustices. Now dealing with people and money and whatever. All right. This difference is found in various measures of economic well-being among people or individuals, even the populations, or among countries where we have the very poor, the very rich. That's economic injustices. And sometimes they're deprived of certain things. All right. Due to certain political decisions. Or sometimes you have developing countries and developed countries. You understand? And developed countries seem to have more of the economic advantage and the monopoly of the world. The developing countries struggle to get to where they are because they are not competitive enough. So these are economic injustices. All right. You can see it here. This is an economic injustice, right? This poor little young man eating from here, whereas not maybe not far from him. You understand? Somebody is complaining about a burger not being well done that they paid 50 rand for. Okay, these are economic injustices where people are living in these shacks. You understand? Whereas other people would not even thinking of having that as a shed. Differences between people. All right. So poverty is one of them. All right. Living without basic necessities or limited basic necessities. All right. Such as food, clothing, housing. This is poverty. A clear picture of poverty. You understand? It touches us, but I want to put these pictures in to draw my point home that these are reality situations. That this is parts of our country where there's economic injustices. You understand? Living in shacks like this, you understand, is poverty. They cannot afford. It doesn't mean that they're not employed. So one of it is lack of employment, all right? Okay. Or poor employment, where they earn a low salary. I think that would be better to phrase that. All right. Living below the bread line. It doesn't mean people are unemployed or employed that they're not suffering poverty. They're earning low salaries. Obviously, they're not going to afford all the things in life like food, clothing, etc. And some people live way below the poverty line. You understand? okay, or the living standard of wage, you understand, that we talk about. They earn very little. So they are in poverty. And of course, unemployment is another thing. You don't work, no money. Lack of education doesn't mean they're not intelligent. They could be very intelligent, but they don't have the education to take them places to get a job. Even sometimes you may find that even semi skilled jobs or unskilled jobs to certain may require certain pass like your matric or whatever, and if lack of education they don't get anywhere, so they just have to live off scrap employment or employment that pays very low. Okay, is a problem. And of course economic decline, economy is dropping, unemployment is rising, inflation is rising, so even the little money they earn because of inflation, the cost of even buying a loaf of bread becomes very high because of economic decline. And the little money they earn, they buy less now, get more into poverty. Okay, let's go on. Another one is poor public transport that has been stipulated by our curriculum. And this is known as insufficient or poor quality public transport, in that sense that even though there's public transport, it's sad to see situations like this. And people need transport to go to work. You understand? Even if it's working informal jobs, whatever, they need to move around. Okay. You can't have things getting stuck or the quality being low. All right. Mostly taxis, many of which are not roadworthy. This is another thing about poor public transport network. So poor transport networks in terms of infrastructure, potholes and this and that. Okay, poor quality buses which are not reliable. And this creates a lot of problems economically and socially. You understand? Look at the bus, look at the taxis that are loaded here. All right, and many of them may not be of the good quality. All right, yes, projects government has put up, like your how train, your Ria Vaya, to try and improve conditions. Of course, they have limited success because they cover only a certain area. The Gautrain will cover certain areas, and there's various cost factors which may put not many people will be able to put money forward to pay for that. But it is one of the situations that have been put up to handle the problem of poor public transport. This is your Ria Vaya that sets up, and there's different stands where it can go through. It allows for more movement of people at a quicker rate, therefore not cutting on economic production, etc. Okay. Social injustices. Okay. Where people have unfair practices being carried out in society. This is definitely unfair practices. All right. Where we have the haves and the have nots. The haves got everything and the have nots got little. Okay, various factors again, that's social injustices. The first one we're looking at is unequal access to resources and services. Okay, yeah, people don't have access to the same resources. Example, water. If we look at this is South Africa also. You understand? Where, yeah, this guy or this young man has to take from a little area here. We don't know the quality of the water. You understand? But he has to take that to put into his bucket, which he's going to use as an essential need for satisfying his thirst, his drinking, maybe for cooking. You understand? And if you look at the other hand, this is a swimming pool. This is not only for drinking, it's a recreation full of water. This is what we talk about unequal access to resources and services. And that sometimes we say, even up to now, we have two different economic worlds in one country. Learners, even in many schools, there's no proper piped water. And yet some schools, taps be left open, if you understand. So it's two different worlds in one country. A good example, high income areas and the informal settlements. Two different worlds because they're also related to economic structures, but two different worlds. And they vary regarding resources and services. Okay, so that's what we looked under social justice. Okay. Uh, how do we manage? You'll notice under other social issues, it's a repeat of the same things. You understand? And I'm just going to go over them. You've done this before when you handled urbanization and strategies. Okay. And here, very clearly, also managing increased employment opportunities, promoting economic growth in terms of managing urban challenges. All right. So the more employment, you'll promote economic growth, people will have money, better quality of life, encouraging decentralization of functions and people. If you move them out, you're cutting many of these challenges of congestion and overexhaustion of resources in one area. I know you may have done this before, but it's good to revise over it and put it into context of this section. Development of green cities, which incorporates green areas, all right, cutting down the density, creating more open spaces, provide housing and basic services to the population, low cost housing, even piped water, electricity to the people to sort out these urban challenges, making different land uses walking distance from each other. So we're cutting down on the use of motor vehicles, whether it's public transport or private, because things are nearby, you can walk and get them in one area. These are the postmodernist cities where everything is nearby, less traffic congestion, less everything. All right. That means having functions in one area which limits movement. That's also you're not even walking distance. You create these big malls, etc., where everything is together. You go in there, you do everything together in one place. Transport routes with pedestrian or bicycle access. Example, in residential areas, you have little side lanes created next to the pavements where you can have your bicycle lanes and people walking, and it's safe. All right, because no cars are allowed there. Wider streets which integrate with the environment. Example, planting trees on the side of the road. Wouldn't that create a better appeal and cut down this monotonous buildings and create more open space? So there's various things in terms of managing urban challenges. There could be various other things. Please, again, when you answer your paper, please make sure that you look at the resource and put your answers in context with the resource. They may give you other specific solutions or challenges. Use that if the question requires it. All right. So let's go to the question. Once again, I've used an article as I use in some of my other lessons because we practice a lot of resources in terms of diagrams, sketches, but sometimes we don't use many articles, and article questions people sometimes tend to avoid, but yet many of the answers are in the articles or guide you towards the answer. So let's go on. Okay, let's look at this. Examiner again. Notice the common strategies. Tells you what the article is dealing with. Environmental injustice, damage to the environment by man, all right, to the natural environment. We already know that. So where are we looking at? Environmental injustice in South Africa, specific to South Africa. All right, something that some damage caused to the natural environment by man. So let's look at what it is. Through its work at the Medupi site, this is a mega coal-fired power station. We know generation of electricity, and we know our big one is Eskom, is guilty of an environmental injustice. They done something naughty to the environment. Right. In South Africa, it is the poor who bear the impact of poor air quality. So we're saying the poor suffer the most, caused by coal-fired power stations. So to summarize at the moment, they're doing something ESCOM to the environment, and the poorer people are suffering more than anybody else. Why? These power stations are situated close to the poor mining communities. Right, so we know now why they suffer, because the power stations are nearer to the poor mining communities. Right, and they're mining people. Poorly built houses provide little protection against bad air quality. The houses are built very poorly, so air pollution is getting to them much easier. They don't have those proper protection measures like the richer communities. Location of the Madupa power station in the water scarce region of Lepalale, of course, in Limpopo, is another problem. Why is it a problem now? Because I'm sure it's relating to water. Increase in mining and power generation activities has increased demand for water. Now we know the water is scarce in the area, but also the problem is that these stations, etc., are using up more water. All right. So therefore, less water available for communities. Can you see how quickly we summarize? We learn so much. ESCOM is creating an environmental injustice. It's affecting the poorer people more because they live close by and they build poor houses. The area is scarce in water, but the mining and power is even using up more water in this scarce area, and very little is available for the communities. Quite a good points being made. Now let's look at our questions. What is environmental injustice? Can you see a pattern? Learners, it is any harmful substance, condition, activity causing damage to people and the environment. All right, it's more the environment. The examiner allowed for quite a few options here because it's a concept, but as we can put it shorter too, it's sort of harming, causing harm by man to the natural environment. Okay, that still will be fine. Okay, because it's defining the concept environmental injustice. Okay, then name the environmental injustice caused by coal powered power station. In fact, the examiner is looking at the main environmental injustice. So the reference here is to the main. But even if it's not to the main, you take it as the main. And the main one is coal powered air is being polluted, or poor quality air. So take it as the main one. Can you see? Because it's coal, it's generating, it's burning air pollution. Let's look at the next one. Why are the poor mainly affected by the environmental injustice mentioned in 442? That was a question before this. This is straight from the article, because they live close to the power stations. Can you see? Mainly affected. All right. The other factor is the quality of the house. Why are we not accepting the quality of the house here? All right. Because the question says mainly affected, and the main factor is the proximity to the power stations. Are you getting this, learners? It's so important to be clear about these things. Okay, now let's go on, and I'm already skipping my stuff. I'm being naughty again. Right, let's go to 4.4. 4. Name two negative effects of environmental injustice mentioned on the community. It did not specify. All right, watch out for some questions that may say social effects, negative social, negative economic. This is an open question. All right, so look at this. All right, uh, respiratory problems. Can you see it? Medical or social issues. More skin ailments because of the pollution. Increase in eye diseases. You've learned this over the grades. You understand? And you've done it there. So it's straightforward. You've done this. All right. It's taken not from the article, but it's what you've studied. All right. Feeling of discomfort and lethargy. Can you see? Increased costs for medical care. Can you see it? Social and economic. Negative impact on small scale farmers. because they don't have these big things to do a lot of protection of the crops, etc. They're growing it maybe to a certain extent on a commercial basis, but they're on a small scale. So there's a lot of damage. All right. Acid rain affecting the health of people, the communities, the vegetation. High maintenance costs due to acid rain. All right. To maintain, if you're doing farming or whatever, your buildings even. All right, it becomes a economic and social issue because buildings deteriorate under acid rain. You have to keep on doing maintenance. Water is contaminated and polluted, not only, I suppose, for livestock, but there's reference made here, right? In terms of economic, the farmer suffers because livestock water is polluted, can also affect the plants. So can you see how these answers are, learners? Simple once again. All right. But we look at the word negative. Okay, not positive also. And any factor here. But also, as I said, you need to guard against. If it says social, you stick to social effects. If it says economic, stick to economic. Environmental, you stick to that. Yeah, it's open. All right. Okay, let's look at this. Suggest two measures that can be put in place to protect this community from the environmental injustices named there. All right, in 442, which is your air pollution, etc. So you have to work around that environmental injustice. Do not forget this, learners. You always have to go back to 442. And the environmental injustice was air pollution. You can't talk about noise pollution now. All right? You can't talk about other environmental injustices. And the answers become very simple. Many learners forget this reference to 442, that in that answer was air pollution, and they give any other measure. It's simple, but it has to be specific to the question. Like, look at these ones. You know these ones already. You've done them over the years and in grade 12. Tall smokestacks or chimneys distribute the pollution at higher levels. Okay, so the upper winds can take it away. Didn't you study this before? Yes. All right, they disperse it. Filters and scrubbers installed in chimneys to clean the air. You know, putting filters. You've done that generally. So this is a question that's not related to the article, but you've studied this. The only difference is you have to look at air pollution only as stipulated here. That's what changes the order of the question to higher or middle order. Legislation to protect people's environment. Say, hey, we'll fine you if you over pollution the area. Assistance in legal claims against polluters, helping them legally, the people, if something has been polluted and it's against the laws, getting the lawyers to assist the poorer people and get them to fine the company so that they can get paid for the damage that they have caused. Frequent testing and monitoring of the air quality. Can you see these things you've done? Testing it to see if it's increasing and say, hey, Mr. Escom, you are damaging this place. It's increasing. You're supposed to be decreasing. Policing and implementation. All right. Polluter pay principle, imposing fines. You police the area regularly. You don't assume that you've been there once, that it's now fine. In a few months' time, it may be different. Compensation to community for healthcare, compensate them, building even of clinics, medical care systems. You understand? Relocate poor communities away from power station. Okay, that's a debatable one, but it's also a solution. I know you may take them from a place of work, but it's a solution to move them away and create a subsidized transport system that will bring them to work. Improve housing conditions for the poor, build better quality houses which may allow less pollutants to affect them. All right. Create awareness campaigns, educating people about the environmental rights. Number one, issues they can take up, they can charge companies, and also educate them about protective measures that they can take. Promote clean energy resources. All right, clean energy resources, wind, water, hydro, you understand, solar, These are clean energy resources, so less of this energy would be produced from coal. Create green belts to assist in the cleaning of the area. Your vegetation areas, they absorb carbon, etc., which will reduce the effect of the area. So you've done this over the years. All you had to do was, yeah, make it specific to air pollution. Last one, discuss the negative impact of the location of the Madubi power station to the surrounding farming community. Again, learners, where we make a mistake is we do not look at the action words. First, negative impact, the bad things, the location of the power station to the surrounding farming community, not just any community, the social community, the farming. It can be social again if the farmer is affected. You understand? So it's about the farming community. Yes, it can be many factors, but it will affect the farming community. It can be social, economic, whatever. All right. So let's look at some of the answers. Less water for irrigation of crops. Can you see? Because they're taking a lot of water to use in a power station. Pollutants from power station have impacts on the quality of soil, leading to the decrease in farming. Of course, pollutants get into soil, poor quality soil, and that could damage farming. Reduction in production of crops because of all the pollution. Production of crops, costs rather, of farming increases because now the farmer has to use different types of fertilizers, protective measures in order for his crops to be saved, and also has to build storage facilities due to the lack of water. Okay, I'm gonna move myself down again. I'm getting tired being up there. Sorry, guys. Prices to produce will increase because there's more costs involved. To produce the crops will increase. Obviously, if you look outside the farming community, we get to pay more too. But at least that's not the answer for now. We're looking at the farming community, but the cost to us increase. Profits for farming communities will diminish, right? Will get less because now they can't overprice the stuff because people won't buy. So they increase it slightly, but the profits being made will be less. Shortage of water for domestic water use on the farms. Right? The farmer will also experience domestic water shortages beside for his crops, right? Because they're using up so much water. Some farmers become abandoned due to low yield. If the farmer is not making a profit, he's making a loss, there's no use doing the farming. Acid rain stunts the growth of crops, right? It has a negative effect. It destroys, it doesn't allow crops to grow fully, right? This is a problem. And in that farming community, there's food insecurity, right? For themselves also, because they're not earning much money, they don't have proper supply. So, can you see once again, learners, as I've been doing through all my programs, it's looking at the important words, the impact negative on the farming community, and you've done all these things. All the papers are done in all my lessons. It tells you this is geography is not difficult. It's about knowing your word, focusing on your action words, and making the answer specific or in context to what the question is asking. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. I'm sure you will be even more ready for it. All right. All the best.